Good morning, boys and girls, and welcome once again to the eastern wing of the Stink Bug Works. Yesterday, there were all kinds of glitches yesterday, and for the most part, I was unaware of them. One of my viewers mentioned, hey, you didn't slurp coffee in the video. And I told him, that's okay, I'll do it twice in today's video. At least twice. Anyhow, yesterday's video got truncated somehow. And I write it off as a feature of the iPhone, but it's probably more like operator error. Anyway, the part that got truncated was the best part. It was where I invented something live here on camera. And I'll tell you what I did. I got out this form and I was talking about how I'm forming this. This was the first go around where I wrapped it on a paint can. And it took a curve and it's holding it pretty good, but you can see this is a much tighter curve. And this has been down here for a while. And I was explaining that I'm waiting to glue the sides on until I can get these plugs in here, because there's going to be a little short section of wiring that's permanent to the boat. So I'm going to have one of these little 3-gang plugs right here and some leads going off through here. Anyhow, the part that got truncated was where I invented a new way of doing this. I was planning on taking this one off, setting it aside like this, putting that one onto here, and while this one is hanging out, I would paint it with epoxy, let the epoxy cook off, and do it the way I like. You know, you paint it with epoxy, let it sit for 10 minutes, and then you just wipe it with a paper towel. And what that does is it gets epoxy in all the little pores and the little end grain, and it seals it up just enough that there's no more pores or anything. And all this gets another couple coats of epoxy. You know, in some areas there's like 3 coats of epoxy here. But I was looking at this and thinking, well, why am I painting epoxy on it? Part of the problem with this cowl was I had it all nicely curved, and then I painted epoxy on it, and it revised the curve. Well, I don't want that to happen here. So I said to myself, you big dummy, why don't you just put some wax paper on here and then take your epoxy thing and then tape it back on while the epoxy kicks off. It'll only be another 24 hours. And I said, oh. So I invented that live and on camera, and you guys missed it. Well, so be it. I got the cool little brass rudder I ordered, and I'm going to have to do some work on the shafts. That's going to have to be the shaft, not the 2mm, but the 3mm, because this one's 3mm. They told me it was 2 when I ordered it, but I screwed up. I trusted them. So the brass rudder looks cool, but I kind of like the larger area of the plastic rudder. And since it's merely a matter of one set screw, and I'll have to fool with this shaft and get it the right length, but that's not a big deal. But one set screw, and that rudder's out and this rudder's in. So that's how easy it would be to make them interchangeable. Another thing I'm thinking, this bulkhead they rounded the corners there for obvious reasons. One, because they're die crushing the parts. An inside corner is structurally weak. And so that's probably why they did that, was to avoid the structural weakness, because that could break during, forming the hull, and it would just make your day miserable. I'm going to square that off. I'm going to come in with a Dremel tool, and I'm going to square that off. And my interior, I decided it's going to have a sloping side that'll match that. And part of the reason for that is that gives me room to hide the wires behind that sloping part of the interior. So the interior will be wide open. And remember now, I'm going to be able to overhang the deck over the motors, and I'm going to add a piece and sand it round that'll get painted. Well, I'll talk about paint. I'll sand a piece rounded as an instrument panel, so forth. Here's what I'm going to do for paint. I'm, of course, going to have wood grain here, and if I go with a flat hatch for running and the motor just for display, for whatever reason, maybe the motor's just too damned heavy and it, we'll see. But these are going to have the cool wood, and so will the transom. And the primary color for the boat is going to be yellow, bright yellow, and everything will be outlined. So the outer portion of this will all be yellow, and there'll be a wood insert. I may put a center yellow stripe too to make it appear as if the wood is just two panels. And the same thing here. Whatever I do here, I'll copy here. So primarily yellow, but I'm thinking, picture in your mind the T Plus Unlimited Hydro. It was yellow and black with red stripes here and there, and I think it had some yellow stripes on the black. But anyway, it was primarily yellow and black with some red stripes. That would be kind of cool on this, but it might get overly complicated visually in trying to make it work, because I want the wood to be the major thing here, and either the engine or the wood to be the major thing here. So that's kind of what I'm doing for paint. I may just do yellow and then put some pinstriping tape on it. Ooh, pinstriping tape. That might not be a bad idea. Pinstriping tape. See? Dr. Jet is inventing on camera. Okay, boys and girls. Until next time, Jet out.